At Farmers Insurance, we know the sound of a perfect hot air balloon landing. And a less than perfect one. Seen it, covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
The following is a Podcast One Minnesota production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you are listening to the Makers of Minnesota podcast. We are on episode 109, and if you have listened to these podcasts and enjoyed them, please give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. The reason you do that is A, it makes me feel good. B, it helps other people find the podcast, which is always challenging in this world of so many podcasts, so many people doing such great work. So if you feel so inclined to share our story, you're also welcome to repost any of the podcasts that you find or share them. Stories you find interesting. We're also on Instagram. So if you see a podcast there that you're interested in, feel free to repost or let us know any podcasters that you're interested in us sharing their story or products. We are here to talk with people that make things in the state of Minnesota, people that make cool things. It could be apps. It could be a pacemaker. It could be, in the case today, an actual magazine, or it could be an online zine, as it were. I am here talking with Kara Larson. She is with Make Minnesota, which is a magazine, but it's also a digitally platformed magazine. Is that correct, Kara?
A little bit, yeah. So when we rebranded at the end of 2017, we are no longer publishing like a digital format.
Yep.
So I still do some online interviews with creatives, and those would be like digital-only content. But the magazine, the print magazine, is definitely like the primary product.
Okay, so people subscribe to Make Minnesota. Do you mind if I ask how many subscribers you have?
We are, it's tricky because like each issue changes so much because like we lose quite a few.
Sure.
It's like, like that like kind of crossover. But we are right around 100.
That's great.
Point. Yeah.
What made you decide to publish this magazine? Like you're just a single person doing this and you're writing a lot of the stories and you're doing in magazine form what I'm doing in audio form. You're highlighting cool people doing cool things. Like, how'd you get started?
Totally. So the magazine, I came in one issue in. So it was founded by a husband-wife duo in Nicollet, Minnesota, just like this adorable little town. So I met Leah, who is half of that duo, while I was working at a small horse magazine. So the magazine was called Arabian Horse Times. It was my first job out of college. And so as a staff writer, social media, because I was the youngest person there. So they're like, obviously she should do it. And I think I found out through another coworker, actually, that Leah had this side project called Make It Minnesota. It was about to become a magazine. And yeah, I think it was like, I'm so ready to not write a horse story.
Right.
Just very eager for some different kind of content. And yeah, I just asked her if I could do some social media and write some stories. And I think that she was all for it.
So your original story, do you remember the first story you wrote?
I looked it up because I was like, I wonder what it was. And it was actually on a forum at Walker. And it was called Branding Minnesota. So it was about Minnesota identity. I think there were like 3 prominent like business people.
Sure.
And then I think like a Walker employee as well. But it was really interesting. And like thinking back, I think it was a very interesting place to start because I'm not from Minnesota. So I think and I had lived in Minnesota for like a year or two at that point.
Where are you from?
Small town South Dakota. It's called T, South Dakota. So
my guess is maybe this was all transpiring around Super Bowl time too.
Oh man, it was. So that would have been like fall 2015.
Yeah. And
Winter
a lot
2015?
of ideas about what Minnesota was as a brand, as a business community was sort of starting to coalesce at that time, simply because they were trying to figure out how to package it and make it really intriguing for the Super Bowl visitors.
Totally. Yeah, I can definitely see that because the main kind of points were like geographically, like why are we interesting, culturally, and then just making it thinking about like the quality of life here, the
and
opportunity.
embracing the North
Yes,
instead of
yeah.
I think a lot of that is where this whole bold North idea came from. This idea that you can't hide from the fact that it's going to be freezing cold in the winter, so embrace it, encourage people to get out, and that appealed to you. It sounds like
It did. Yeah. I think there's something about Minnesota that I connected with really early in moving here. I think that I don't really know what it was. I think maybe it was a little bit of a romanticized notion. Like my first times up in the city were to First Ave, to see like my favorite rappers.
Sure.
And, so it was just
who
like,
did you see? Do you remember?
oh my gosh, probably Atmosphere.
Yeah, and
Prof.
you had the Doomtree Collective.
Yes. We saw them at Palace last winter.
It's funny because I think and I'm much older than you, but when I think back to like my young 20 life, seeing bands at First Avenue and seeing Prince play and was really like felt so Minnesotan. It felt like such a cool thing to do.
Definitely. Yeah. And I love Minneapolis. I think when I was working at the Horse magazine, I was first in Shakopee. And it was kind of like because the magazine was in Jordan.
Sure.
So it was like, I can't do this 5-minute commute like right away. So worked up to that. I lived in Uptown and then convinced them to do, I think, like 3 days a week in the office and like 2 days at home. And then eventually made this my full-time gig.
So is this your full-time job?
Basically, I freelance on the side. So I still do some writing and social media, just like, for like real cash.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because if you have 100 subscribers at any given time, it's not like it's super lucrative.
Totally. Absolutely. And what's nice now is that we have different tiers of subscribers. So if people like want to give more, that option is there. And we have quite a few of like that go at the supporter level or like the patron level. I think we have a few of those, which is so exciting.
Because people want to support your work. So you are writing the stories. Do you take the pictures too?
Sometimes. Yeah. And it totally depends. Like, I like to take photos for my own stories if I can. But if a maker has an incredible backlog of photos that they want to use, like totally welcome. Sometimes we'll hire a photographer, special for the feature, which is awesome too, or an illustrator, which I love.
At Farmers Insurance, we know the sound of a perfect hot air balloon landing. And a less than perfect one. Seen it, covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
I'm kind of going through this as we're talking, the latest issue. And you have a whole feature. There's a cooking feature. You have All Are Welcome Here and the refugee community. You did a story about that. There is a story about a women's wood shop. I mean, you really take a lot of the stories that I'm wanting to do in an audio format and you make them visual, and it's beautiful, and you do such a great job. How do you find your stories?
Oh, man, totally depends. I feel like this year, for some reason, it's been more like word of mouth. Kind of just like suggestions from other people. I spend a lot of time on the internet, just like researching markets.
Can you remember a story where you were like, oh, this is going to be so cool, and you were really excited about talking to the person, and then you got them to talk to you?
Oh man, I feel like every story, I'm totally excited about. I adored for that issue talking to Jess Hirsch from Women's Woodshop. Just such an inspiring woman, and I don't know if you know anything about them, but it's woodworking for women and non-binary makers only. I think that they might be having some male classes soon because the men are hey, this sounds great, we want in. But yeah, ladies come firfirst there. Really inclusive, really community driven, and yeah, just a really inspiring woman.
What was your background in South Dakota? Like, were you a journalism major or
English?
English?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, a good English major. I love that. There's hope for my daughter yet, too. We were all English majors. And people are like, well, what is she going to do with that? I'm like, I don't know. She's going to write or something. I don't know.
Anything.
Yeah, exactly. So when is it hard for you to work on a story, or are you just like, okay, I've interviewed this person and I'm just going to dive right in? Because I find writing hard, actually.
It is totally like just where I'm at. You're
in it, just like my radio partner, Stephanie March. She's a writer, and she just can write and write and write and write and just sit down and write.
Sometimes I'm there. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth. And it's tricky too because, I have one story usually per issue, but I'm, contacting all the writers.
Yep.
I'm doing self-distribution, dealing, with the business aspects, like the taxes, like all the boring, awful things, plus social media. So it's like, sometimes it can be hard to kind of like turn on my writer. After like being in those different mindsets. But other times it's like a welcome change where it's like, cool, I don't have to, work on like some like
subscriptions
lame,
today.
Yeah.
I can actually just sit and write it down.
Yeah.
In terms of the business side of it, like how do you get subscribers? Would you market it? Is it word of mouth, through social media?
Basically social media at this point. And it's funny because I'll totally notice, like, if I like have like a particularly thoughtful post, we'll get some subscribers.
I love it. It's people that just want to support the maker community.
Yeah, totally. That's really all we've done. I don't have any real marketing background or expertise, so it's very much just like see what we can do with like whatever time and money I have.
Yep.
Or the business has. So
do you feel creative?
I mean, yeah, I think that's a big like, umbrella type word.
Yeah, and I only ask you that because some days, like, I don't know, I don't feel like I'm a very creative person. But I think some other people, like, it just oozes out of your pores, right?
Oh, man. No, it's totally a spectrum. Or, like, if you're having a low day, then it's just not there.
Yeah.
Or maybe that fuels it, too. Like, creativity is weird. And I think that's absolutely something that I take from the people I talk to, where they're so inspiring. Like if I talk to a maker, like I immediately want to go home and paint or
do something like that.
Yeah.
Where do you see this going? Like, do you think you'll just keep expanding? Do you like eventually want to be an editor of like a city magazine, or what's like your personal drive?
Yeah, I would love to see it just get like thicker and thicker. I think we're about 50 pages right now, and yeah, I just want it to get bigger and bigger. More contributors, more stories. I would love to see this be like a long-term, like sustainable magazine for me, and like to be able to cut a paycheck,
And you guys don't sell advertising. Is there a reason behind that?
Yeah, I think it's really distracting. I think that we're super inundated with ads at basically every step, especially when we're trying to read a magazine. And because I'm very distracted by advertisements, I kind of loathe reading something where you like have to find the story in between the ads.
Yep.
Just a personal preference. So yeah, and I think it just makes it special, and like it's such a beautiful print product, and it's expensive to print. So I think that like every bit of that is really precious. So at all cost, I would love to find alternative.
And that is through subscriptions. That is through benefactors.
Yeah, like social media collaboration. I'm very cool with selling that space.
So tell me what that looks like.
Yeah, so I've worked with quite a few like events, usually craft market type events. So it would be like American Craft Council, their like craft show in the spring. Junk Bonanza I've worked with. Maker Fair, MSP, the like kind of like Tinkery Fair. It's really fun.
They were on our podcast very early on.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like them. and like a few other markets.
And what does that look like? You will do like a highlighted post for them in exchange for some kind of monetary support of the magazine?
Basically, yeah. And I usually put together kind of like a fun package to just make it fun for the both of us. Because it's me writing that preview story, making the posts, and I usually have some sort of maker interview component too.
Yep.
Which is really, good for both of us. So I have a good time with it.
I think that you've done a great job with the magazine. I've been really pleased to meet you. Someone had mentioned you a long time ago, and then I've been checking the magazine out online just to get story ideas and to see some of the things that you're interested in. Are there any like genres that are off limits, or do you see creativity in this particular issue? There's food, but there's also art. There's makers.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And I think it's funny from where the magazine came from. It was very like craft specific.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I took it over on my own, the end of 2017, I kind of wanted to broaden our focus a little bit and kind of think about where community was, and just like in all kinds of makers.
Yeah, and that maker's a really broad term.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I'm really open to like creativity in a lot of facets and just kind of exploring Minnesota identity and connecting to communities through their perspective. I think is really interesting.
All right, we've been talking to Kara Larson. The magazine is Make Minnesota. You can find it online at makemagazine.com, right? I want to make sure.
Make MN Magazine.
Okay, I'm reading it from across the desk here, and I'm obviously need glasses. makemnmagazine.com. You can subscribe if you would like to see more stories like this. Being a benefactor or sponsoring would be awesome. Kara Larson, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
At Farmers Insurance, we know every windshield collision has a unique sound. Beetle. Bird poop. Drone. Seen it, covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. An F-16 pilot having hydraulic problems with his aircraft managed to parachute to safety as the plane smashed into a warehouse east of Los Angeles. Fire Captain Fernando Herrera.
That pilot landed in the March Air Force Base area, in the base itself.
Amazingly, there were no serious injuries after the plane hit the building. Alabama executed a man last night for his role in killing 4 people after an argument over a pickup truck. Tennessee executed a man who killed his wife. Reporters couldn't see the execution, but AP correspondent Travis Lawler says
we could hear sounds, including a singing, that Mr. Johnson's attorney says was him singing a hymn.
Answering a reporter's question, President Trump said he hopes the U.S. is not on a path to war with Iran. Mr. Trump has dismissed suggestions that any of his advisors are trying to push him into a conflict. I'm Rita Foley.